All right, this is your poor man's radar perspective of the Jefferson event as viewed from the Omaha Doppler radar. And we're going to start in here on the top screens. This is a quarter until 6 o'clock. Anybody who watches radar, you'll see circulation right there south of Scranton. Now this radar imagery is about 10,000 feet up in the air due to the beam elevation off Omaha. So yes, there's a mesocyclone there, some strong rotation. Severe thunderstorm warnings in effect for what's happening over here on the left, the large hail growing aloft near Highway 30 near Scranton. But very little threat of a tornado because we are at 50 degrees temperature and chances of a tornado developing in here and rooting down through that cold air is extremely low. It would be an extreme outlier in the probability of these kind of events. So let's take you through time a little bit and we'll diagnose what's happening here. And this is what I was watching in real time. I was actually on the Highway 30 area here looking at this and could see just tremendous rotation in the clouds there stirring up the cold air, but nothing coming down. But you could actually see what was happening during the time. Interesting but uneventful except for just a little bit of small hail. As we get closer, mesocyclone in here is starting to spread out, become wider. Got a little bit of a donut hole there. Looking at the spectrum width, very noisy signal down here south of Jefferson, which is what we would expect with like outflow type winds. Up here to the north between Scranton and Farland where the hail is growing, you can see very smooth spectrum width, so lots of updraft in that area and corresponds nicely with the velocity. As we go ahead again, we can see the mesocyclone up in here, strong outbound velocities on the southern flank of this storm. Here's the corresponding reflectivity picture. Go down here to the rotational component, showing a little bit near Jefferson, but very weak. And again, we're up at 10,000 feet. And spectrum width, very noisy, again associated with turbulence south of Jefferson. All right, this is about the time that we had the first indication of what I think was the first damage at about 6 minutes or so before 6 o'clock. And you can see on the velocity over Jefferson, some pretty strong outbounds up against very weak outbounds. We flip this around just a second here and look at storm relative. You can see we do have an inbound-outbound couplet very high, up at almost 11,000 feet there. So again, you could infer rotation. If we look at the rotation product, you can see there is some weak rotation over Jefferson. Can't really make out a hook or anything because we're up at 11,000 feet in the atmosphere, and again on spectrum width, pretty turbulent. So about all we can say there is probably some strong outflow winds, maybe some circulation developing, but way up high above the ground, and certainly with the cold air in play, we can't say that any of that was actually drawing that cold air up, and if it was, it would probably cut off that circulation pretty quick. All right, we'll move ahead a little bit more, and this starts to see some convergence right in here. Got the sinking air, diminishing precipitation right behind it, and this is about the time that we had the secondary damage with the wind out of the north, and you can see inbounds here, outbounds here, so maybe that's coming into play with the wind going away. We had a garage over on the east side of town that blew from the north or from the south to the north. So maybe this is coming into a play, but again, it's up here at 10,000 feet. So can we say for sure that was getting to the ground? Maybe not. I'm going to take the radar off and just show you, based on what we're looking at, where the damage was occurring. So the first damage started in here and then went up north to about here and then fanned out. So we saw that little puff on the video from the car wash that lasted maybe 20-30 seconds. So I think that was right here, and insulation from this building actually came across and landed at the car wash, which is about right here. And then about a minute and a half later, we saw the strong winds which came in from the north and then blew up sections of these buildings, came across, hit this building over here, took off the Casey's roof. Pieces of the Casey's roof actually were found a mile south of town. So that's how violent that wind was. So just kind of putting everything back together again. So my little marker there, I placed that because about the time we saw those strong winds coming together right here at about 6 minutes before the hour, you can just kind of see how that matches up. But again, you can't say anything conclusively because this was 10,000 feet above the ground. So next video we'll look at the Des Moines radar, which was a little more chaotic, but see if there's any value in that.